Good evening, campers. It is me, Kieran, and today we're going to talk about a book, an actual cultural phenomenon, because not many books come out and absolutely smash records, and Prince Harry's memoir, Spare, has indeed smashed records. Prince Harry, over the course of 5 years, has gone through a character arc that I don't think many people were expecting. All around the world, a lot of people were joyous for his marriage to Meghan Markle, the American actress. All over the world, people tuned in to watch their wedding in May 2018. And since that moment, the reputation of Harry and Meghan and that of the monarchy has been in turmoil, with people taking side with either party, evidently frustrated with how his family have treated Meghan, so much so the British media coined the term Megxit, as they have now left the country, and with that have left their royal assets behind. But Harry has been on a rampage of airing out his family's private business. The irony of this entire situation, as I see it, is that Harry and Meghan are absolutely committed to keeping everything private while continually making everything public. The first instance of this was in March 2021 with the Oprah Winfrey interview. At the end of 2022, there was the release of their Netflix documentary, of which the couple were paid $100 million. Now in 2023, we have Spare, his memoir, more so his swan song. The Penguin Random House paid for the rights to publish this $20 million. The average Jane and Joe knows that Harry is not strapped for cash, and with this $20 million, which is roughly £17 million, he paid Pulitzer winner J.R. Moehringer to ghostwrite this memoir. I think this is important to bring up right at the start, because this is meant to be Harry in his own words, but it's not really. It's Harry's word through the lens of someone else. Harry might have signed off on the words, he might have proofread and changed certain parts. However you look at it, this is Moehringer's interpretation of the events. This is Moehringer trying to put Harry's words across effectively to the reader. In amongst all the inaccuracies and inadvertent mistakes, and we will touch upon this later on in the review, the question that is probably going to come up is Moehringer giving an accurate representation of Prince Harry? Well, if Prince Harry has signed off on it and it has gone public and it has been translated into over 17 language, probably Harry thinks he's doing a pretty good job. To tangent swiftly off that, I'm quite surprised that Penguin Random House was able to keep locks on this project. This is something that isn't written in the space of a week. This is not a work that you can just translate into multiple language with ease. This has been going on for a long time. We could talk about the ghostwriter in a lot more depth, and there's definitely pertinent questions that have to be raised when introducing a ghostwriter to a work, but I think it's worth drawing attention to the form of this book, which is the memoir. What is a memoir meant to do, and what is it meant to portray? One thing to note, that this isn't a biography. This isn't Moehringer doing his research and then writing about Harry. This has been signed off. Neither is this an autobiography. Harry isn't provided the contextual element of his narrative. This is a memoir. The etymology of memoir comes from memory, and this is Harry's memory. This is Harry's version of events. I think he does this more to stop defamation claims and libel cases against him, where he admits that his memories are not entirely accurate. Spare does have a lot of "are you being serious right now, Harold?" moments, but his justification, his almost thesis to where he has got to justifying the inaccuracies of his memory is from brainyquotes.com.
My memory is my memory. It does what it does, gathers and curates as it sees fit, and there's just as much truth in what I remember and how I remember it as there is in so-called objective facts.
I would like to note the little chuckle I did have where it says read by the author. I would like to point that out.
Things like chronology and cause and effect are often just fables we tell ourselves about the past. The past is never dead. It's not even past. When I discovered that quotation not long ago on brainyquote.com, I was thunderstruck. I thought, who the fuck is Faulkner? And how's he related to us Windsors?
The fuck is Faulkner? A good mate of mine, Charlotte, pointed out that Prince Harry sounds very reminiscent of Gordon Ramsay, and now I can't separate the two voices. You wouldn't think an English prince would sound like the Scottish chef, but then he has spent a lot of time in Balmoral Castle, where Harry tells us that it was quite a shame that he had the smallest room in comparison to William. And the reason why for that, Harry sees it, is that, well, he wasn't the heir. Willie was the heir and I was the spare. This is where we get the title from, the heir and the spare, the wanted child and the unwanted. There are a lot of emotions at play within Spare, and the most touching, devastating, and I think the most justified throughout all of this, is Harry talking about Diana, the Princess of Wales. I don't think anyone who's on either aisle of the argument is going to contest that at such a young age, losing your mother must have been absolutely traumatic, heart-wrenching, and emotional, and definitely is going to give you some burdens for the rest of your life. Sadly, Harry is not an ordinary English boy. He is a prince, and while he was grieving, the nation was grieving, and the world was grieving over Diana. And a lot of people in Britain still have such admiration towards Diana. Yes, there is the scandal between Charles and Camilla, but Harry does say within Spare that although he had a lot of pushback, and rightfully so, and completely justified, of his father remarrying, does come to the conclusion that they made each other happy and that they are happy. Spare is scathing to a lot of members within the British monarchy, and I will say that Camilla gets up very easily. She's almost like a background character in all of this. The vitriol in Spare is aimed at William and Charles. Within his recollection, Charles has not yet become king. He's technically not the king. He hasn't been coronated yet, but let's not get into it. Harry seems to be really upset that he is not the heir. Everything seems to come about that they are the heirs to the throne. They have to go on two different private jets because there cannot be an accident, there cannot be an incident, there cannot be attack where the two heirs to the throne are killed. And Harry seems disappointed that he just has to go on a private jet around the world, but no one really cares which one he's on. Say that Harry comes across in his memoir like a spoilt brat, I don't even think is a criticism. I think it's expected of a prince of the British monarchy. Harry seems to lack all self-awareness. Now, what I thought this memoir was a scathing indictment about the cultural insensitivities and reluctance to change of his family and how he is not part of that. That's the reason why he stepped away from it. But Harry gives us some gems throughout this that make you realise that he is equally as part of the problem as he is accusing of his wider family. One of the most baffling comparisons I have ever seen made is that Harry, being a prince, wants to be normal. He wants to get a job. He wants to work on the fondue market that his mum used to love eating at. And his father rightfully goes, "You can't do that because you're a prince." Harry, in reflecting on the situation, I'm surprised that no one else is picking up on this. Harry, now that he's not allowed to be on a fondue stall, he's not allowed to be a safari guide, he's not allowed to be a ski instructor, goes, "Wasn't there a prince in India who sat under a bantam tree? Like, didn't I read that somewhere? Like, he seemed to do okay for himself."
Now I told Pa I'd given up the fondue fantasy, and he sighed with relief. Instead, I was taken with notions of becoming a ski instructor. Pa tensed again, out of the question. Okay. Long pause. How about safari guide? No, darling boy. This wasn't going to be easy. Part of me really did want to do something totally outside the box, something that would make everyone in the family, in the country, sit up and say, "What the?" Part of me wanted to drop out, disappear, as Mummy did, and other princes. Wasn't there one in India a long time ago, a bloke who just walked out of the palace and sat under a lovely banyan tree? We'd read about him at school. Or we were supposed to.
We're talking about Siddhartha Gautama, the founding father of Buddhism. Are we really making this comparison to you wanting to be a ski instructor? What? think the realm of hungry ghosts are that interested in melted French cheese. All the way throughout Spare, Harry really emphasises that he did not read books. He didn't read books. He was the sporty one. He was the one who wanted to be out in the woods. There's a bit where he moves to Eton and he makes himself sound like Katniss Everdeen, in the woods, running away from his trouble, a lone ranger. You're in the epitomised wealthy private boarding school Eton. He didn't read to the point that he's forced to do an art project in Eton in order to graduate. Harry does not read. He doesn't like books. We have literary comparisons. You've already witnessed this within this review earlier on in regard to Faulkner. There's so many literary allusions of writers and authors that are always subclaused with, I think I read about them, or I think there's a book about that. It's so if you don't read, why are all these literary allusions coming through that you don't know anything about? That being said, one of the biggest Harold, what are you doing moments is in the Xbox section. There's been some fist waving how apparently Harry received the Xbox 4 years before the Xbox was ever released. Spare is a masterclass in spinning something just to kind of save your own back. And here he says that he's been told this story. He's not entirely sure if this is true, but makes the comparison of his inability to remember the details with his mum's brain injury from the car crash.
Mummy bought it for you shortly before. You mean in Paris? Yes, Paris. It was an Xbox. I was pleased. I loved video games. That's the story, anyway. It's appeared in many accounts of my life as gospel, and I have no idea if it's true. Pa said Mummy hurt her head, but perhaps I was the one with brain damage. As a defense mechanism, most likely, my memory was no longer recording things quite as it once did.
Now, I know someone's going to make the point. Are we trying to say that we shouldn't believe Harry because he forgot the year that the Xbox was released? Is that so trivial and so petty, so minuscule, that the accusation of racism within the royal family should be dismissed over this? And no, I don't think that is the case. The problem that happens within Spare and its inaccuracies, which the ghostwriter is trying to justify currently at the moment, is that it undermines Harry's position. I think we have to remind ourselves that Harry is a different breed of celebrity. In fact, I wouldn't even class him as a celebrity at all. He is part of the monarchy. And when you're part of the monarchy, it is other people's jobs to know exactly where you were at exactly the time in order to understand and relay any information to you. Harry's life has been well documented. He already has biographies about his life. If you can't remember where you were, where your great-grandmother died, the Queen Mother, and you have swathes of documentation and royal biographers and people who exactly know where you were when that phone call was made, because being a royal, they have to know where you are, it undermines your position. It undermines your reliability. But again, Harry justifies it by saying, well, this is my memory, therefore it's true. And I feel as though a lot of people have said to Harry, yes, you are correct. I think he started to believe this. Not that I think Harry is delusional enough to think that he's completely infallible. Harry is vocalising everything and getting nothing back. And I have to say, throughout Spare, it sounds as though Harry is a toddler who's having a temper tantrum, throwing out all the toys out of the crib. And I think it's because he's unable to articulate himself. He's unable to express how he feels. I think that's why a ghostwriter has gotten involved in writing of Spare. Although this is Harry's words per se, he's not articulating how he must feel, what he is going through. It does not take a psychologist that losing your mum at a very young age is going to have an impact on your adult life. It doesn't take a psychologist to realise being on the line of duty and shooting 25 people is going to have an impact on your life. It is going to severely make you psychologically distressed. And I think Spare is Harry on the verge of a breakdown. One of the most pivotal things is Harry dressed up as a Nazi. Harry within Space says that William and Kate gave him the idea. Because he was travelling back and forth Africa, he didn't have many clothes, and it seemed like an easy idea for this party. Now, Harry was 20 years old at the time, so do I think that he's adult enough to turn around and say no? Absolutely. I do want to highlight something that seems so obvious, but sometimes the obvious things can sometimes shroud in front of our eyes, is that if Harry had to go to a shop to buy this outfit, surely there was something else there that would have fitted the idea of colonial and natives party that wasn't a Nazi uniform. I'm aware there are going to be people typing in the comments saying, but a colonial and natives party isn't a good idea in the first place. And I agree, but I'm also aware that 2005 Britain was not as culturally sensitive back then. I think we can all agree that across the world in 2005, we were a lot less culturally sensitive than we are now. Harry, after being ripped to shreds in the tabloids, feels as though he needs his moment of repenting. So he puts his hands up and goes, "That's a bad idea." So visits the chief rabbi of the UK to realise where he went wrong and meets Holocaust survivors. I want to emphasise something here because I think it's very important. I think people are really giving Harry an easy time on this. Harry did not wear a costume that mocks a small, marginalised, indigenous group that the likelihood of Harry knowing about them and being insensitive towards them would have been justified. If he had done that and then met up with this cultural group in order to learn the error of his ways, I would go with that. Britain knows the history of the Nazis. It is in recent history. It was 60 years ago at the moment of this event. If you feel as though Harry is somewhat absolved because he spoke to a rabbi and spoke to Holocaust survivors, you are absolutely deluded. So that's the legacy that has plagued Harry. But I think the legacy that is going to come forth from Spare is not in regards to what he is saying about his family. It's not going to be about the remarks made to Meghan. It's not going to be about showing the injustices of the British and American media. I think, just like everything that goes on the internet, it's what's viral is going to stay. It's not going to be Harry as a soldier fighting in Afghanistan. It is going to be Harry rubbing cream on Frostnipistan. Yes, I think the viral passage that has been posted on the internet, and I'll put it up here for you to see, is going to be the legacy of this memoir. Harry's frostbitten willy tip. Moving on to, I honestly, that Frostnipistan bit is surreal. But the other scandal that came out from this and was leaked was the scuffle between William and Harry, where William knocks Harry onto the ground. But in regards to where it's placed in the memoir, now if you haven't read Spare, this altercation between William and Harry happens in the third part. The first part covering his child years up until he joins to be a soldier. The second part is him in war, and then the third part is when he meets Meghan. So remember, we have just read about him being in war, his celebrating of war by drinking through prosthetic limbs. Like, we know that he has seen horrors. We know that anyone who has stepped out onto the warfront has seen horrendous things, has gone through things that we cannot fathom. Yet William, like, pushing him to the ground a little bit roughly is like the bit that broke Harry. Like, it all seems petty, it all seems me. Quite honestly, I feel sad for the guy. I feel as though he can't articulate himself, he can't express himself, and in someone else trying to express it, and what Harry feels as though is a good representation for how he feels, we just get a pity party and the idea that he's kind of stuck in his ways. I'm aware that the idiom, the Heir and the Spare is what has encapsulated this title, but the other idiom that I'm going to throw out is birds of a feather flock together. Harry is the case person that he's saying about his family members, but there doesn't seem to be any awareness of anything that he has done. He is the exact image of the people that he is besmirching. To me, with the release of Spare, he's drunk the poison in the hopes that it kills his family. And Spare just shows he is the exact same as his family. He is equally racist, culturally insensitive, spoilt, rotten, completely undermines all the allegations that they have made. The thing that irks me the most is that we just need to know the culprit of who made these racist allegations and comment towards Meghan. Harry knows who it is because he told us in the Oprah Winfrey interview, but he is staying stum. And I don't think I trust someone who will stay stum on that moment, but will happily tell the entire world about his frostbitten Willie. That he's happy to indulge us in killing 25 people. That he's willing to air out his family's dirty laundry for the entire globe to feast upon, yet ultimately will just not tell us who was racist. Honestly, I'm perplexed that there wasn't this outrage in regards to Prince Andrew. We seem to be swept up that Prince William pushed his brother a little bit too hard and he fell on the floor, while Prince Andrew apparently is unable to sweat and spends his time in Pizza Express in Woking. If this doesn't tell you the problem with the argument and the situation that our society is in, I don't know what it is. But you know what? Spare me from it.